This is a Blairing Out with Eric Blair show, coming to you from the Whiskey A Go-Go in beautiful Hollywood, California, for the Rock Against MS benefit concert in honor of Penny Maglieri with comedian Hal Sparks.
Correct.
Why is the Rock Against MS benefit important to you?
Couple of reasons. One is when you get involved with a cause and you're trying to do some good and you're trying to help people, like raise awareness, raise money, any of those things, there tends to be, in some cases, a sort of morose, soft fascination with being kind of pitiful about it. And that's not often how you solve the greater problems in life. And so seizing it and bringing like music to bear on it in a really fun and exuberant and forward way, I find is just way more tolerable. And people don't, it's not one of those things where you go, I'm going to go and sit at a round table and they'll play Sarah McLachlan videos and I'll, like, you don't have to convince me, I'm already on board. One of those charity events. It's more like we came here to celebrate life, and those people who are inflicted with MS, that's a challenge. They're ice skating uphill every day with this thing. And so there's a recognition of that there's got to be some hope in where there's to go, because the goal is one day we put this in the rearview mirror and they can bang their head with like the rest of us in that regard. That's the heart of this whole thing, and I think that's why it's so exciting to do.
How did you meet Nancy Sale?
Nancy, no one meets Nancy. She meets everyone. She's kind of the boreworm of social interaction. So she'll just, if you're walking by someplace, like one of her tentacles will reach out and snatch you in and go, "Excuse me, I have an idea." And honestly, I think, I play in the circles that are around the whiskey and have for a very long time, and many of the musicians here have graced the stage at Rock Against MS before. I think she even said, we need a host at some point, and I was like, I'll do it, from across the room.
What do you love most about being Hal Sparks?
Oh, that no one else can be. It's a good time. I have to admit, I'm enjoying this quite thoroughly. I feel like a walk-in spirit that's being, like, what's it like in Heaven Can Wait in the portion where you get to be Hal Sparks for a while. It's really cool. It's super fun. Like tonight, I get to do music and comedy together, two of my favorite things, and I'm kind of doing a little bit of acting because it's a character. So I get to like crowbar it all into one thing. The nice thing is that I am. Let me explain something to you. Anybody who says being famous is a pain in the ass or is uncomfortable is an asshole. They're idiots. It's fantastic. People are lovely. And when they know you, especially for work that you do that they like, they present their best selves to you everywhere you go. And that is, it's hard to even explain to people who can't or haven't experienced it, but it's a beautiful thing. When somebody goes, "Oh my God, that my sister and I watched your thing and we just loved," and that all those conversations, every single one of those conversations are gold. They're like precious moments in my life, and they stack upon stack. So that's the best part, and being able to do any art I want because I can get away with it.
You're going to run for mayor.
Yeah, I didn't want to run against Karen Bass this round, so I'm holding off till the next round of it. However, there might be an opening on the city council soon, so that we shall see. I might be jumping in sooner rather than later, because say what you will about my spicy language, it never gets to the point where it's painful, and so I actually am. I'm seriously considering that now. Yeah.
Now, aren't you afraid? Okay, now
No.
being a politician, I know you're not afraid,
Right.
but being a politician does suck up a lot of time. Are you willing to sacrifice that time
I mean, it does for some people, because I think it requires more mental effort on their part than the task at hand. You know what I mean? Like some people, it takes up all of their mental capacity because their mental capacity isn't quite top notch. And other people can, pack it up early at 5 o'clock. Job well done. And the interesting thing is that as a representative, because we're lucky enough to have a representative government in this country, as a representative, you also have to have a life. You have to you can't spend all of your time trying to just kind of build a political career even when you're in it. You have to spend some time living in the space, the city, the congressional district or whatever that you live in, really living there, engaged in, friendships, community, your church, your, bowling league, whatever it is. Otherwise, you're so detached after a couple of rounds of being in there that you don't even know what the people around you want anymore. And, LA is one of those very flexible cities. It goes through a lot of different tides and turns. So you have to be engaged. It's a great thing about being a stand-up because, actors can live in a castle and be separate from people. Musicians can retreat into a bus or a studio and separate themselves to some degree. But as a comic, I got to pay for my own groceries. I have to rent my own cars. I have to drive in traffic. Otherwise, I won't be able to make jokes that anybody cares about. So that's always been the easy part for me. And to me, being a politician is probably closer to being a comedian artistically than anything else. You have to be able to see BS and reflect it back in a positive sense and go, okay, this is what's wrong with this. I think I have a solution.
What solutions do you want to come up with for LA being the mayor?
Well, the primary one is, and I mean, we have a few different issues, but primarily like our homelessness issue, everybody thinks is one issue. It's not. It's three. You've got a mental health issue. You got a drug problem. You have and a career problem. You've got people who fall through the cracks. They're a third of, let's say, the people who are homeless. Those people can be helped. You give them a shave and a haircut and a place to live. They can get back into life because they just hit hard times. Then there's people who are burned out because they have addictions and they need massive help to get back on their feet again. Then you move them back into that stage. That takes time. And then there's mental health issues that are beyond material help. These folks need to be institutionalized or in a support system that can take care of them because it's cruel and unusual to leave them on the street because they cannot fend for themselves. The problem with most of these situations is most people think it's one problem. Homelessness is a tribe, as if homeless people are all the same, and they just aren't. And so they try to solve it with one solution, and you can't. The other issue is a zoning one. I think we need to overbuild in the Los Angeles area. We didn't build buildings in this city over 3 stories for decades because of earthquakes. Now we can build them and it's not a problem. Every apartment building that's built in the city needs to be 8 stories or higher to handle the number of people. You need to build out the middle class size housing. You can't build affordable housing. Will never do it. You'll never be able to build cheap apartments because people will just start charging more money for them. So you have to build out the middle class so everybody who can afford one of those where they're not taking over small 1-bedroom and bachelors, at a middle class income level, because those people should be for people who are about to fall through the cracks and can get a toehold to get themselves back up. So building low-income housing is never going to solve it. You have to build it from the middle out. And that would be the primary thing. Increase the zoning for building apartments and multi-resident homes.
If you were...
Other than that, I have no opinion.
Look, I expect to get a lot of good stuff out of you, man, because you are a comedian. And comedians, we discussed this.
Yeah.
Comedians are geniuses. In order, well, do you think some of it? Do you really think you can phone it in as a comedian? You'd be destroyed.
Well, a comedian or a comic. That's, I guess, the difference. If you make the distinction between a comedian and a comic, because the idea is a comedian says things funny, a comic says funny things. So you can fake it as a comic. You can't fake it as a comedian. I think yeah. And there's a difference. You can buy jokes when you're a comic. You can't buy jokes as a comedian.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right, we just learned something here. Okay. You're stuck on a desert island. You can only take 5 albums with you. What are they going to be?
Well, first of all, is there a record player on the island and a solar panel that runs it? Is it the old-fashioned? Do I have to hand crank this fucking thing?
I think, Hal, with technology today, AI and all this robotics,
you can only beam 5 out. Like your brain chip only has capacity for 5 albums. What would they be? King's X, Gretchen Goes to Nebraska, Tool, Lateralis, Kiss Destroyer, Danko Jones, We Sweat Blood, and Van Halen, 1984.
Sweet. You know that most people crumble with that question. A lot of people crumble with that, man.
That's sad. It's a sad state of affairs, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we've got a weak generation of weak people, and we need to build up strength and learn to fight again. Because when one little question like that can bring you to your knees, what challenges in life can you actually fight? I worry. I weep. for the future. Also, listen to all 5 of those records, and you'll be able to answer that question very easily next time. Just say what Hal said.
What has been one of your favorite roles that you've played in a film?
You know, I did a movie called The A-List where I played this kind of glory days football guy who was, years later, his family's falling apart and he's trying to get connected with his kid and stuff. And I get cast in this thing and I fly up to do the movie, and it turns out that the guy playing the kid playing my son in it was the son of a friend of my ex-girlfriend's from years ago, and he looks just like his dad when we hung out when we were 19. And it was it was one of the most instant connections I ever made with somebody, where I was like, I care about what happens to this kid in this movie and in this circumstance because I know his dad and we're almost like family. That the whole feeling flowed from that. That said, I mean, obviously, Dude, Where's My Car is nearing world dominance in the in the ability. Like when you've got Italian soccer players and Pittsburgh Pirates doing the Zoltan Z when they're running around second base, I made that up. I came up with that thing. That's amazing and ridiculous. So I got to go sing.
All right, hey, Hal Sparks, Blairing Out with Eric Blair Show with Hal Sparks. That's signing off.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
The Blairing Out Show.